Hello and welcome to a really important episode of the Reiki Women podcast. And today, along with my wonderful colleagues, I have Michaela Daystar from Heartscapes Reiki and Bronwen Logan from Reiki with Bronwen. And I'm Carrie Varela with the Reiki Healing Society. Today, we want to talk about the hard realities of making a living in the world of Reiki. How do you even get started, get your foot in the door, starting to see clients? And then, even if you have established Reiki business, how do you pivot over time? How do you juggle some of the financial realities that we all face in our modern world? And how do we make a sustainable and lasting income working as an independent contractor or sole proprietor? So I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of really deep wisdom to share because I think collectively here between the three of us, we have decades of experience working with Reiki, dealing with those ups and down challenges that we've all faced. And of course, in the time of this filming, 2023, we're all up against a lot of financial challenges with inflation and the way the world is, the way the world is. So I'd love to hear from all of us with an opportunity to share some of your insights and wisdom of how you made a living in the world of Reiki.
Yeah, this is it's kind of a vulnerable topic, right? Or at least it's feeling that way to me. As I was sharing as we began, I'm in the middle of some pivots, some shifting in my business, and that's always an uncomfortable place to be. And so, I wanted to just kind of start by acknowledging that it's a vulnerable topic for anybody who is, making their living from something that they're deeply passionate about and that feels very personal. Like in essence, our businesses are us, like the thing that we sell is the experiences that we facilitate, the experiences we've had in our own life that we can pass on, and the feeling of being with us really in the spaces that we cultivate. And so to talk publicly about the challenges of doing that and maintaining the societal, needs for a certain income, certain, stabilities and so on, is just inherently challenging and uncomfortable. But I think it's a really important thing for us to talk about, largely because, firstly, I believe in being transparent with our folks, right? And a lot of the folks who are listening to this podcast and who work with us in our businesses are themselves working at being Reiki practitioners or working in some other field that's really passionate for them. And so the more we can be honest with each other about these experiences, the better. And because the way in which we approach our business and the balance of firm and flexible in our business, our ability to shift and pivot and change, our ability to allow our life to speak through our business is something that impacts every part of our life, not just our business life. And so I think there's a lot of wisdom in here for life in general and for Reiki, for those who aren't necessarily Reiki business owners. So, I think I'll just kind of open that up by saying that, one of the things that I'm working with right now is the reality that there's periods of time when we feel like we're kind of maintaining well in our business and we've kind of put things in place. We've worked really hard. I worked for 3 years to really establish a particular structure within my business that felt really good, and that maintained for a period of time. And I'm in a period of time where it's not maintaining well anymore. And the results that I'm getting from what I'm putting out has shifted to being unsustainable for me financially. And that, there's a lot of feelings that can come up around that. And when we come into that point of things that have been working are no longer working, it's a choice point. It's a point to pause and take a look and say, is this temporary or just small adjustments I need to make? Or is this really a time to make a major change or a pivot? And for me, it's feeling like there's some serious changes that want to happen to just kind of make the whole of how I am sustaining myself function better. And so that's just kind of generally where I'm at. And I want to pull it back a little bit to some of the like strategies that we might want to connect with our Reiki practice, because I've talked a lot, we've all talked a lot over these past many months that we've been doing this podcast about the reality of discomfort and the fact that life comes with change, life comes with discomfort. Any kind of change, growth, transformation involves discomfort. And one of the great gifts of practicing the system of Reiki is to help us to navigate discomfort, to make more space inside of ourselves, to be able to hold conflicting feelings and feelings that feel like they're too big for us, to be able to stay grounded and clear when we need to make difficult decisions, and so on. So all of that really comes into play powerfully when we're faced with a big choice point within our business. And the things that can come forward for us that don't serve us well when we're not in that place of being grounded, certainly fear is a huge one. This is something that we all have to navigate when we're working through big life decisions and things that have real impacts on our life, like where our income is coming from, the stability of that system. And fear can cause us to freeze, which is what I tend to do when I'm afraid. So I'll not make decisions, not make changes, kind of try to stay with the status quo, keep things the same, because I'm too frozen to make changes. Or we might go the opposite direction and change really erratically without thinking things through, right? Like, oh, this isn't working, so let me just change everything and stop everything, when really, we might need to take a more measured pace. There's lots of ways in which we respond to fear that can be really outside of clarity. And so I think it's important to really name that, because I was feeling that over the past couple of weeks. I was feeling, at times that freeze response of like, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to kind of hunker down and keep doing what I've been doing. And then this like, yeah, but there's pieces that I know are not working. They're not feeling smooth anymore. And then feeling that opposite impulse to like, okay, well, screw it, change everything, throw everything in the air, break it all down, right? So these two extreme responses to fear are really common, and they can lead us to making really bad decisions. So what I've been in this last week is taking a pause, but not a frozen pause, a curious pause, like let me actually look at the systems that I have going on. Take some honest looks at the ways things are going and really see how it feels in my body and be in my practice. Luckily, I'm in the midst of a 21-day practice that Carrie is participating with, that really has given me some space to pause and to just feel what it feels like in my body to be in this place in my business right now. And that's been hugely beneficial, because it's given me that pause, that space, but outside of the sensation of being frozen. It's given me an ability to kind of take a look and be curious and just say, okay, what's happening here? And to see some places where I can pivot. I'll just pause right there. Maybe we'll circle back around to sharing what some of those pivots are, but I wanted to just kind of lay some of the framework around fear and around how we navigate that feeling of fear when we feel called to make a change, make a pivot in our business.
Yeah. Last week, by the way, sorry for the sound if it's a bit weird, everybody. A T on computer issue. So my mic's weird. But yeah, Carrie and I last week just briefly came across money when we were talking about things. And we talked about just briefly the stories that we tell ourselves around money, and how we how that affects everything that we do, so how we were brought up, and how we bring our children up as well, and the stories that we tell them about money. So I think, that just reminded me of that, Michaela, and I think she did a podcast on money in the early days. So that might be, if someone is interested in that subject, might be worth pivoting around back to that one too. For myself, it is a vulnerable conversation. And
possibly because, well, yes, the fear, and I guess
we don't want to. I think we think that we're weak if we have financial issues.
Yeah. And that people will see us as weak or less than, that idea that
a Reiki teacher should be this infallible being that we often talk about, and that we're not. And as I always say, whoever gets into the system of Reiki is usually coming in because they're a bit messed up, right? Because everyone's trying to sort themselves out. And that's why you come to a practice like this, to sort yourself out. So everyone comes to, and that doesn't mean that if you've been working with it, that you are this, perfect being. And so, yeah, of course, we're all going to have issues with this, and they're all going to be unique to us in our situation, and our upbringing. And if I look at myself within the system of Reiki, so I've been practicing as a teacher for 25 years, around about. And I know that, I've gone through different phases with that.
Because when I started, I was living in India, and I had a Reiki center there with my ex-husband, and, we were living the life basically, and it was really beautiful and wonderful, and it was a great time, a great learning time. And then, we came back to Australia to have a child, so to create a family, and we decided to continue working as a Reiki business and not doing anything else.
So, though I do remember, now that I say it, well, I did a business course when I came back. I was like 8 months pregnant, and I was doing this business course, which was a really good thing because it did,
it gives you more confidence with what you're doing. And I do remember in those very early days, so probably the first year that we were back in Australia, that Franz was working as a, what do you call it, like a concierge at a hotel, like to try to get a bit of money so that we could, exist. And we had a baby, and I remember thinking, oh, wouldn't it be lovely just to be able to buy some, like pregnancy clothes or something special like that. I mean, for years, I think really we never considered it important to
have a lot of money, in the sense of
that wasn't why we were doing what we were doing. It wasn't to be rich. We certainly survived, and we had, help along the way. We bought a house, it's funny, we arrived back in Australia and we were started up a business here. I was pregnant. We did not have a cent. And within 2 years, we bought a retreat. And, that was from help from family. And, it's like, it's not just like it'll just,
it wasn't that we were like, doing this amazing thing, but we put
all our time and effort
7 days a week, from early morning through to the evening, into working on a business and,
working out what it is that we were doing, what people wanted.
And I've always been incredibly committed as far as that's concerned. And I was just talking about it yesterday. It's just like, for me,
with the system of Reiki, because I love what I do,
it does give me that extra motivation. And I think sometimes that's hard for people to
pull that extra thing out, and it does help me to pull that extra out, and I can work, just
ongoing. And by the way, I homeschooled my child as well for all of this. And, so I mean, it's just sort of like just
work, but it doesn't always feel like work because,
I'm a creative person. I find business creative. And,
so I think yes, it's difficult, but the challenge, the challenge when you haven't got any money, right? What is the challenge?
And the challenge is to make some money. How are you going to do it? How are you going to do it with something that you love? So as I think, Michaela, you hit it on the nail, flexibility.
You've got to, I have a computer full of all these different things that I've tried at different times over the years, and 50% of them haven't worked because they just didn't, and so you just move on to something else, and you can't get stuck on something, and you need to be able to be flexible. For example, living in Australia, small country, big country, small population, I should say, and we live outside, or lived outside. I live outside of the city, and very small country area where I live. So it's not easy to get people here. It was never easy to make classes. And we realized very quickly that Australia really isn't, in a business sense, a market, because you can't live on it. We needed to feed 3 people, pay for a house, pay for a car, pay for, insurance, do all those things from this income. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about, and it's just like so, the pressure of that. But as I said, reframe it, change the story, challenge. What is the challenge in it? Where can you find inspiration? What is going to make a difference? And you've got to use your common sense. So Australia wasn't a good market. So what did we do? We actually said, look, we love living here. Let's expand. And that's basically what we did. So we started teaching in places where there was a market. And it didn't sound too easy, but and it probably wasn't easy, but it was just that shifting of thoughts of what is working, what isn't working.
Otherwise, if we hadn't have done that, then we would have had to stay here or not stay here. If we stayed here, then we'd have to get a job in a local, pizza shop, and or sell up, and I don't know, so there's always options, always changes. In fact, recently, about 2 weeks ago, I had this thing happened, and I was really shocked, and I was like, what am I to do? And I was a frizzle for like an afternoon, thinking, oh no, and everything seemed to have gone wrong, and I just felt like, this could be the end of the world. But there's a side of me that knew that, of course, it's not the end of the world, right? And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling her about this experience, and she said, Bronwen, all I can say is, and I know you know it, is that you're not always going to feel like this. And I said, yeah, I know that exactly. And it's so true. And, that's that thing that when we get into that fear cycle, we can just feed ourselves, and what we need to do is to actually step outside of that and recognize that, yes, ups, downs, it's going to be difficult. For me, then, I got divorced 2015. And so then, then it's a different story again. So, flexibility, it's like, what do you want to do? It took me a long time to actually, I really sat back into that and thought, you talk about taking time. I took a couple of years for myself to sit back into it and to think about what I wanted to do. And did I have the motivation and the inspiration to actually run my own business? And, and yes, I did. I think I'd lost it a bit. So that was the thing. But, so refinding that and always looking for that, that thing inside of you that can make it all, that can make things happen. And that's a sort of a vague roundabout experience of mine. But yeah.
Well, I just want to acknowledge 2 very strong women who have persevered. Nevertheless, she perseveres, right?
Yeah.
And I think following your passion and following your calling is never easy, but it's worth it. How is it worth it? Why is it worth it? Who knows? Because, what else were you going to do? Not follow your passion and I think, I reflect back on when I became a Reiki practitioner and a yoga teacher as my full-time gig and my career path. It was at a very unique time in my life. It was also at a very unique time in the area that I lived in. And I think a lot of people were diving in and becoming Reiki practitioners, yoga teachers, kind of getting out of their corporate jobs and into, creating their own businesses at a really creative time. There wasn't a lot of us either. So it was a little bit easier to kind of get our foot in the door and establish ourselves, as a certain, as an expert in a certain area. And that was, again, a unique time in my life. And it's those first couple of years that I think are really pivotal for anyone who's trying to step in to a role in the healing arts. You have to have some thick skin and some longevity, maybe some savings underneath you to really step into that place, because it does take time. It just takes time to build up your clients and, find your voice as well. Find your own unique voice and your perspective that you share. And for me, what always worked for the first decade really of my career path was that I was a yoga teacher and a Reiki practitioner. And these things were they were different, but very complementary. So like I could go teach a yoga class and I could guide people into a really sweet feeling and a beautiful practice, and people want more of that. And I had this other avenue to work with people one-to-one. And so my yoga business always helped me put me in front of people, right? And that's always the best. That's the best marketing out there, is to be face to face with people, to see people and to have them get a glimpse about who you are, your energy, all of those things. And so that always really helped. And there was just kind of this revolving door I had between yoga students and Reiki students and Reiki clients, and some people who never came over to my Reiki business either, but love to take my yoga classes, right? And so I was really building two businesses at the same time. And it worked out well, and they both kind of came in sometimes 60-40, but a lot of times 50-50 in terms of like my overall income. But they were like in a non-dual kind of way. They were two aspects of the same coin. And so, I always encourage anybody who's on the path of wanting to enter the healing arts space, who sees himself as a healer, feels like Reiki is their calling, is to develop different aspects of your gifts and be strategic about how that, puts you in front of people and gives you opportunities to make a name for yourself, and to not only make a name for yourself, but also, give a multidimensional way to provide healing. And I think both of you totally do that. And I always really admire Bronwen, in particular, your writing skills and how you wrote these amazing books. And they're just this testament of this research and the depth of your practice that, probably still support you in some ways, not even just from the book sales, but also from, your leadership, right? And anybody in the world of healing has to see themselves as a leader, and a willingness to flex that internal muscle, to put themselves out there and to be seen. And that's really hard. It's like this internal muscle, and sometimes you can flex it and you put yourself out there, and then the thing that you put out there doesn't work or doesn't come together, and it can feel really deflating. And it is a high and a low cycle, emotional cycle that I've had to go through I don't know how many times. And I agree with you, like, you look at my Reiki Healing Society folder on my computer, and there's just god-awful amount of things that I've done, tried to put together, created. I am like a Canva superstar because I've made like, I don't know how many infographics on Canva. And so, my business is actually a creative outlet for me. Like, I'm constantly creating. And the truth is that sometimes I don't get paid for what I do. And I think that I think we have it wrong in the world of the way business training are being done right now, as there's a lot of encouragement to offer free things, and it doesn't ultimately relate back to, you know, earning something that is sustainable for you to provide that creative value to your clients, and really to the world. So I'm learning new ways, just like all of us are, to pivot and to shift my business structure so that it pays me what I deserve to be paid. And I've actually been all year taking this course on how to make 10K months and make $100,000 a year, because that's kind of like the ultimate, well, not the ultimate, but that's just like the sustainability point, you know, where we can invest in ourselves, we can get paid well for what we do, but also as a small business, I'm also putting a lot of money back into my business. So money that I earn isn't always just going to my pocket to pay for my things. It's going to invest in my business and invest in things that help me make more money. And so once you're kind of making over $50,000, a lot of times that's kind of like the ceiling for most solo business people, because that's, you know, unless you're valuing your systems and your services to a higher price point than most people in Reiki do, you don't really get beyond that without investing in having other people help you with the marketing and all of the different things that really need to happen in order to get to a higher value in business. So in your Reiki business. That's certainly not always the case too. And some people kind of just run off on the gate or open the gate and they just go running and like collect a huge following and, you know, put something out on the market that is really valuable to people. And, you know, but that also, you know, life and our business is very cyclical in nature. So even when we have one thing be a wild success, it also, we still have to work at all the other little things, right, to make those things successful. So anyways, I don't want to discourage people, because I want to encourage people, you know, to be smart about the investment that they're making into their business and themselves. Be smart about the quality of life that you want to have and how the outlet that you want to your business to provide you. So my suggestion, I've been working on this mentorship program for many years, and I'm still like in the baby phases wanting to launch it. But one of the things that's always helped me is being really clear about what my streams of income are. And so I've gotten some business coaching, and just in general, millionaires, they have an average of 7 streams of income. And that means that when one stream of income goes down, another one can go up, and they diversify their income so that it's coming from different sources. So when the economy is bad, like it is right now, you know, that they have other avenues that they can put their time and resources into. And so I think as even from the outset, we should be starting to think about that. And within Reiki, you can have many different outlets of income. You can have your Reiki sessions, you can have Reiki trainings, you can have Reiki programs, you can have Reiki products. But it's also important to keep really good records of those things so that you know what's actually moving the dial in your business, what's actually making you money. Because I know for myself, I love making Reiki malas. I really do, but and I actually earn a lot for making Reiki malas, but unfortunately I also spend a lot of money getting the beads and all of the materials for them, and that's the case almost for any handcrafted product. So about as much money as I make, I put it back into it because I love to do it, right? And that's probably not the right mindset, but we're working on shifting that. But I do feel a little attached to the whole process. But the key here, though, is I know that that's not going to pay my rent, and it's not going to pay my car payment. It's not going to pay my insurance. So I don't put my resources there. I put my resources into the things that do. And I keep track of my growth every year. And I notice when at the end of the year, what went really well. And I put my energy into that. And like Michaela was talking about, we can definitely go through cycles where we feel really burnt out and depleted by, putting an offering out there. Maybe we don't get as much traction as we want out of it, and it puts us into a freeze mode. But that ultimately have to kind of not stay in that place and put all of your time and energy into that feeling of failure. You have to shift and to celebrate. Like, that's been a real life lesson that I've been working on lately, is just taking time to celebrate. And my spreadsheets that I create in my business help me celebrate. So I celebrate every new client that comes in my door. I celebrate every new person that joins my email list. I take time mindfully to step into that feeling of success rather than feeling stuck in failure. And I'm also, I think being open to, maybe I do need another part-time job at times, or maybe to support my retirement and all of those things. I really haven't figured that completely out yet. But I know if I choose to do that, it will be something very strategic that allows me to, again, be in front of people, to use the skills that I've cultivated with Reiki in a different fashion that hopefully pays me more money, those kinds of things. But and also be strategic about how much I'm charging ultimately for the price of the services that I offer, and putting high value on that time, because it can be like months or even years of work that I put into making or designing a program. And so I have to price it accordingly, so that it can be sustainable.
Yeah, you're hitting on some really, both of you, important pieces to highlight, right? Staying creative, staying flexible, and staying diverse in how we put together our income. When I was working a full-time regular job at a university, a lot of these things still applied. There were a lot of different streams of activities that I was doing in that job, but it all amounted to one income, one paycheck that came from one source. And so it was harder to see the reality of what you shared, Carrie, that there might need to be, up to 7 different streams coming in. Now that, the business is me and I'm the one who's tracking all of the different things, that's something that I've been really aware of, is like, where to not spread myself too thin, but to create a variety of streams of income that really do all serve. And and I appreciate, Carrie, that you brought up the potential value of having a part-time job, because that was something that I had to kind of make a mindset shift around. For a long time, I felt if I went back to working for someone else, then I have failed at my own business. And what I've circled to now is that if I can find someone to partner with as an employer that, as you said, allows me to continue working within things that I'm passionate about, that are connected to my business, and that connect me to other communities, and that put me in a container of colleagueship with other people. So I'm not just me in my living room by myself all the time doing my business, then that could have great value, not just as, a side hustle, but also to my business itself. And so that's what I'm looking at doing. I had an opportunity to apply for a job that is in a realm that's not Reiki, but that is attached to my other passion, which is gardening and plants and sustainable agriculture. And that, just kind of hits a lot of the points in terms of scheduling needs and allowing flexibility to keep doing my business, and allowing me to interface with a lot of different populations in my community that I don't currently connect with. And so I applied for it, and I had an interview with them this morning, and it felt really good. It felt really aligned. If they offer me this position, it's going to feel really good to say yes. And yet there's still that little voice that says, yeah, but you're failing. Yeah, but you're letting your business down. You're turning your back on hardscapes. And so I'm like, hi, little self, hi, little voice that's feeling afraid and feeling sad. Let's do some work on that, right? Because if I want to be successful, I need to keep my heart open for possibilities that I haven't necessarily thought of already in my mind. And, when I came back from this interview, there were 3 emails in my inbox that were weirdly related to the intersection between my business hardscapes and this potential new job. Like just random people who had emailed asking, hey, might this be possible, at this very weird connection between those 2 things, like completely unrelated to this job. So, it felt like a nice reflection back from my community, from the universe, from, the energetics, that we really will do best in our life when we let our life speak, and when we let our lifestyle and the way that it changes over time speak to us and guide us in the decisions that we make around our business. And I know that, but I also am aware that I started to feel really comfortable with things being the same after having done a lot of work to get to that place of stability. And there's a part of me that just doesn't want to have to change, right? That doesn't want to have to try something new and readjust all of my schedules and readjust this year-long program that I just, designed. And, so I'm being with all of those parts of myself, right? The parts that are disappointed, the parts that are tired and don't want to change, the parts that are excited to have a new opportunity that actually feels really, really good, and the parts that are really curious about how all of that might come together in a way that continues to sustain my life. Because the reality is, by running hardscapes over the past almost 7 years, I've built a life that I love. Like, my life feels really good and really aligned with my values. And that's at the highest priority for me, to maintain a lifestyle that is in alignment with my values. And that is going to mean being flexible, right? And I think that what I'm coming to is that it can look very different than maybe I planned and still be in alignment with my values in a way that feels really good and gives me the life that I want. But it is going to require me to change, possibly more often than I would like. So that's where I'm at today. And I appreciate having the chance to talk with the 2 of you and to just be in this container of colleagueship and support around this endeavor that we all have to, put our best self out in the world and make a difference through our job, and also make a difference in our own life by doing work that we love.
Yeah, I know we've got to go. There's just a couple of things. This thing is that the more people, this is pertains to what you were saying, Carrie, the more people that
actually work with the system of Reiki, the more that it becomes
mainstream, popular, the more people that will want to learn it. So, sometimes that feels a little confronting when there's, with other people doing what you're doing, and when you're trying to set your business up. But if you can think of it in those terms, that we are all actually just building an industry together. And that is a really powerful feeling. So the more of us, the better that is. And the other thing is about price, getting paid. I actually have in my head a price per hour that I think that I should make. So I always keep that there. And so whenever I'm doing something, there is this, it's almost an unconscious thing now, but it's there. And it's saying to me, okay, will you be making da 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 per hour? Because that's what you need to be able to survive, right? And so also, if people question you about pricing or anything like that, if you've got this inner strength of what
that you need and that your value is, then that will support you in coming across confidently in the business and hopefully moving forward successfully.
Yeah, I love all of this insight that we've had a chance to share. And I just want to shout out, if anyone's listening who's new to, learning Reiki, really feels called to develop themselves as a Reiki practitioner, is that you will get there. And if you continue at it, all things within Reiki are possible. That ultimately, I think, it is kind of switched. We expect to have results, and that the results then give us validation for who we are. And that's something that we also have to really work hard on, is to know who we are first, not seek that external validation, as lucrative as it feels at times, but to really know ourselves and the value of the things that we offer, and having everything we do be a reflection of that, rather than to prove that value, right? So also, I also want to say that I feel like one other piece of this is that in our modern world, we're asked to be so self-reliant, and Reiki is about interdependence. And so one of the things that I've really had to lean into is that there are many times where I haven't been able to be completely self-reliant as a human. And I've had to take that as not the goal. And that rather is about leaning into my community, leaning into my family, leaning into the very important role that I play in the world, and not feeling like I need to be self-reliant in order to be a success, but rather I am just inherently successful because I'm living my life and following my passion, living my dream, and that I don't need that external validation. And I feel supported by all the things around me. The universe supports me, has supported me greatly in my Reiki practice and life. And so I hope you feel that support and can open the doors to feeling more and more supported in your life as a Reiki practitioner. We certainly hope, all who are listening, you can feel that we are your friends on this path, your allies on this path. And so we'd love to hear from you. Love to hear about your successes, your celebrations, your wins, your challenges as a Reiki practitioner, and this whole notion of making a business from your Reiki practice. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions from us, lean into, our decades of experience that might be useful to you. And then, of course, also lean into the services and programs that we offer, because I think that they'll really help you polish your Reiki and become a stronger, bright light in the world of Reiki. And Lord knows we need your light. So let's keep shining, everyone. Blessings. We'll see you again next time.